Everyone, my name is Max. I am the Regional Organizing Director, and I am lucky enough to be working here on Team Amy. I am just here in just a few minutes here. You're going to be hearing from the person who I think is the best person to lead us in 2020 and defeat Donald Trump. Amy wins every race, every place, every single time, even in deep red areas of Minnesota. And that's why I think she's the best person to win big in 2020 in New Hampshire and all across the country. So if after hearing what she has to say you agree with me, then please, we need your help. Please find myself or another individual with a clipboard and sign up to knock doors, make phone calls, get out the vote for Amy in this next, 24, 48 hours? So thank you so much, and let's win big. Oh. Also, please join me in welcoming Hampton State Representative Pat Bushway.
Good afternoon. Wow, it's great to see everybody here. I just wanted to take a minute or so and tell you why I believe that Senator Amy Klobuchar is the best and most qualified candidate in the race. First thing that I believe is experience. I think experience, and Amy has got the experience of getting things done. She's demonstrated that she can accomplish what she sets out to do. All you have to do is look at her record to see that. She'll hit the ground running and be ready to go to work for us to take on those issues that we in this country today. And that takes me to the second reason that I feel so strongly about Amy, and that is that she's got achievable plans, the kind of plans that can really make progress on those important issues, from health care and affordable housing to climate change and foreign policy. She's got sound and achievable policies that can really make a difference, and that's what we need. So those are the reasons that I think Amy Klobuchar is the one we need now. I hope you all are with me on that. All right. Thank you.
Wow, is this a room full of enthusiasm? Nice to see so many people here. And I'm Skip Berrien. I'm one of the, thank you. I'm one of 5 New Hampshire reps for the House of Representatives here in Exeter. And we're glad to have you all here. All 5 of us will be running for election come November. We'll hope you all be back and supporting us just like you're supporting Amy today. Thank you. But of course, we're here for the for this primary coming up sometime this week, isn't it? Maybe? Yeah. And so this is going to be a historical event. And so are we ready to be able to select our candidates for President of the United States? Whoa! Great. Well, you know, I know that there are a number of events happening in the area, and I just want to be sure that we have the right people here for Amy. Okay, so I have some questions for you, and I hope you're going to be able to pass this test. So the first question is, who is the candidate with the most common sense proposals for the future of America? Can I hear? Wow, I didn't hear everyone's voice. Again. Terrific, very good. And my next question for you is, in the last election, who's the candidate who won over 42 red counties in Minnesota? Very good. I think you're on the track here. Who was the lead Democrat on 100 bipartisan Senate bills? Very good. You're almost to the end. Which which candidate has consistently raised her standing in New Hampshire polls? Sure. And last, who's the candidate who will send Trump packing from the White House? Absolutely. Well, so I think you got a pretty good score on this test, and so I'm going to reward you by introducing to you the Senator Amy Klobuchar, the next President of the United States.
Forget the bull in the china shop. There's a china doll in the bullpen. Walk with the switch, fire in the fist, biting at the bit, swinging at
All right. Wow. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. What an extraordinary group. Thank you. Wow, you guys don't let a little cold weather scare you away. Thank you so much to Skip. That was a fun introduction. And thank you to Pat as well for her incredible service to our country. I'm proud to have their endorsements. And I'm proud to be here in Exeter on the day before the first primary in the nation. So as you've probably heard, we're on a bit of a surge. I woke up this morning to 2 post-debate polls that showed that I was number 3 in this ever-changing, in this very interesting, crowded primary over the last months, which I'm sure you've been all following. I also found out that since that debate, we have raised from regular people online over $3 million. Which is really, it is going to help us to continue expanding throughout the country. And to think this all happened out in New Hampshire, well, maybe I'm not surprised. This is an incredibly civic-minded state. Everyone seems like they're elected to something. My favorite story was a town hall in Rye, and I arrived, and there were lots of people there. It was months and months ago. The guy greets me at the door, and he says, "Hello, Senator. I am the town moderator." And I said, "Were you elected to that?" as a joke. And he goes, "Yes, I was. I am the moderator for all town halls." But I think we need this kind of civic involvement right now in such a big way. We know that something big is happening in this country. And I had a lot of time to think of it as I sat through those hearings in Washington, D.C. And the result was not what I thought it should be. And I'm sure many of you share the same feelings. But through it all, and I thought it was just horrific that we couldn't even get the witnesses when 70% of Americans wanted to hear from the people who were in the room where it happened. But more than that, for me, as those hours went by and I was bolted to my desk, and you get so bleary-eyed, you start looking at your colleagues and you look at your hair and everyone's talking about their hair, and they're talking about the founding fathers. I literally started thinking, he looks like a founding father. Sarah looks like it. But in the middle of it, it gave me so much time to think about courage, and to see my friend Doug Jones from the state of Alabama take that courageous vote. To see the courage of someone like Mitt Romney, who said that he took an oath. And I think it just shows, I know he has a home here in New Hampshire, and I think it just shows how things are upside down in our politics in a bad way, but also a good way, when people are willing to show that kind of courage. And that's what this moment calls for. It calls for someone that maybe is somewhat independent every so often, who's willing to raise her hand at a debate and say, no, I don't think we should have this philosophy leading our ticket, but is still willing to unite our country. And I believe that we need a leader, and I think that is me, that will unite our country instead of incite. I think that when you think of the 3 words that best divide Donald Trump's political playbook, it is divide and demoralize. Mine is unite and lead. And that is, as you look at these next 24 hours, look at those endorsements I got from the New Hampshire newspapers, from the Keene Sentinel, where I just was this morning, and the Union Leader, and the Seacoast papers, including the Portsmouth Herald, and the New York Times, just to mention one other one, and that I shared with my friend Elizabeth. And when you look at those, they have the same theme, and that is that we need someone, and they endorse me, to unite our party, but yes, unite our country. So here's the way I see it. You see all the debates going on in the debate stage, and they're mostly about economics, and they should be, because people are not sharing in the prosperity where the president sits and boasts about how good things are. Yet you in your own lives, or you know people who can hardly even afford insulin if they're diabetic, because those, there you are right there, because those costs have been spiraling, who are having trouble finding childcare, because there aren't enough child care facilities or places to go. See, everyone nods their head somewhere. In even a state like New Hampshire, where people have trouble getting affordable housing. And that is because we don't have shared prosperity with some of the changes that we've seen in this country. From a president that goes down to Mar-a-Lago and says to his friends after he signs a tax bill, "You just got a lot richer." He said that. Were any of you there? Okay. I don't want to embarrass anyone, so I just want to make sure, you can say it if you were. I really don't probably think anyone from New Hampshire was there. So that is an economic check on this guy, and we know that. But it is so much more than that. This election is also going to be a decency check. It is going to be a patriotism check. It is about a president that goes to the G20. He's on the world stage. A reporter asks, well, what about Russian interference in our election? And what does he do? He looks at a ruthless dictator, Vladimir Putin, and he makes a joke. Yet hundreds of thousands of Americans have lost their lives on the battlefield. They have lost their lives on the battlefield standing up for our democracy, fighting for our democracy and democracies around the world. That's what World War II was about. 4 little girls at the height of the civil rights movement, they lost their lives in that church in Birmingham, Alabama, simply because they were trying to be part of that democracy and other people were trying to push them away from it. The best moments in our country's history have been about our democracy and standing up for our Constitution. And the worst moments have been about that as well. But this president, on the world stage, in front of leaders that aspire to be like America, or leaders that see America as the one that's going to enforce human rights around this world, they saw him do that. He turns to a ruthless dictator and he makes a joke about it. That's the patriotism check. That's the mind of someone I met in Conway. There was a long line of voters and people were taking pictures and they had all these happy stickers on and they said things like, I'm a climate change voter, I am a Supreme Court voter, I'm a reproductive rights voter. And then all of a sudden this guy comes by, he's got a brown jacket, and I said, sir, you don't have a sticker on. And he says, leans down, well, that's because I was a Trump voter and we don't have stickers at this event. And he says, and these are my neighbors, and they don't know it, and I don't want them to know it, but I'm not doing it again. That is what I'm talking about. And it is on us to bring people with us instead of shutting them out. And I've always told people that if you are tired of the extremes in our politics and the noise and the nonsense, you have a home with me. And I can't think of a better place to make that case than in the first primary state, where you have this tradition of a fired up Democratic base, but you also have a tradition of independence. And if you think I don't know about independence in the state of Minnesota, I have 4 words for you: former Governor Jesse Ventura. So I am well aware of this situation. And when you look at my track record, I have the only one on that debate stage that's left that actually brings people with me. I have won in the reddest of red consistently every single time, congressional districts, in the rural ones, in northern Minnesota, which is very similar to the North Country, where my dad was from. And then I have won every single time, 3 times, in Michelle Bachmann's district. And I have done it not because everyone agrees with me of every position I take, but because I am honest with people. I tell the truth, I look them in the eye, and I bring them with me, and I listen and get things done for them. It is that simple, and I have consistently done that. In fact, I have won every race, every place, every time, all the way down to 4th grade. I say that because those guys on the debate stage are always boasting, and so that's one thing I have. And in fact, back then my slogan, which I've since abandoned, was all the way with Amy Kay, which I think is not a good idea. I'm not using that anymore, but I thought I would be honest and share it with you today. That is my track record. And I took that philosophy of not just campaigning and winning, but I took it to Washington. And that's how I have passed over 100 bills as a lead Democrat. And that's how I've found that courage is not just standing by yourself throwing punches in the corner of a boxing ring. Courage is whether or not you're willing to stand next to someone that you don't always agree with for the betterment of this country. That is courage. That is courage. That's courage. So when you think of the job that's in front of us, and hello to the people in the overflow room. Sorry. I love that. They're finding a way to express themselves. We hear your voice. Just don't break this place down. Just calm down there. I can just control the overflow room. Man, if this is what the election is going to be like, it's going to be really good. Okay, so. Where are they? Oh, okay. Hello. Okay, I guess I'll have to visit them. All right, okay. So when we think about how we talk about the president, and we think about those voters out there like the guy in Conway, and there are a bunch of them in the Middle West. You know that in the middle of the country that we didn't win in Pennsylvania or Michigan or Wisconsin and Iowa and Ohio, and you know that you barely won in New Hampshire, 2,000 vote margin for Hillary, and in Minnesota she had the lowest percentage she had in any state that she won. So I am well aware of this. And so I went on this blue wall tour of states like Michigan, met with dock workers, Wisconsin, dairy farmers, Pennsylvania, carpenters, and I finally figured out a few things. One is that we are going to build a beautiful blue wall around these states of votes, and we are going to make Donald Trump pay for it. Okay, that was the first thing. The second thing, I started something. Okay, so the second thing is that when you talk to people out there that maybe stayed home in 2016 or over, you start to have a little different conception of how they're thinking about this. They think of it this way, they work really hard. And when something goes wrong, like their kid gets sick and they can't afford the prescription drugs, which is a huge problem in this country right now, or their other kid wants to go to college and they can't afford that to send them where they want, or they lose a job, then their spouse works, or they have to add hours, or they have to get a loan. That's what they do when things go wrong. They just put their head down and work harder. And then they see the guy in the White House. And what they see him walking by that helicopter. And every time when the reporters are asking him stuff, why did this happen? Why is there a 25% increase in farm bankruptcies, which there's been? Why did this? He whines, right? He blames other people. And think about it. He blames Barack Obama. That's one of his favorite people to blame. He blames the generals that he commands. He blames the head of the Federal Reserve that he appointed. He blames the energy secretary that he nominated. He blames, this is one of my favorite ones, the entire kingdom of Denmark. Who does that? That's what he does. And as a result of me bringing this up, I have a strange cult following of Danish people. that have been like coming to these events in New Hampshire. Oh, there they are. Yay! Yeah! You see, this is how I'm going to build better relationships with our allies instead of the dictators. But here's my all-time favorite recently. He literally blamed the Prime Minister of Canada for cutting him, our president, out of the Home Alone 2 Canadian version. That is a true story. Okay, so like, who does it? He does that. So we got to remember that they see this. And then they see this other thing. You know what? In the course of his career, he got $413 million from his dad, from his family. So imagine me up on that debate stage with him. First of all, by the way, this is the anniversary of my announcement in that blizzard. And just to give you a sense, yeah, that was the time when he sent out a tweet and made fun of me for talking about climate change in a blizzard, and he called me Snow Woman. And so then I wrote back, the science is on my side, Donald Trump, and I'd like to see how your hair would fare in a blizzard. But so picture me on that debate stage. I'm going to be able to say to him, you know, the Midwest isn't flyover country to me. I live there. These farmers and workers that you are treating with the way you've been handling the debt and the deficit, treating like poker chips in one of your bankrupt casinos, they are my friends and my neighbors. And look at our backgrounds. You get $413 million. This is my family's trust. My grandpa worked 1,500 feet underground in the iron ore mines in Ely, Minnesota, his whole life. Okay, I love this interaction in Exeter. Overflow crowd, save me. Okay, I truly think that he will have to debate, but let's say he will. And if he doesn't, I'll just call him a chicken, so it's fine. Okay, so picture this, and this will be my story. So my grandpa worked 1,500 feet underground in the mines, in the iron ore mines. He never got to graduate from even middle school. Why? Because he had 9 brothers and sisters. He was the oldest boy. His parents were sick, and it was his job. And he wanted to be in the Navy, like so many great people from New Hampshire. And instead, he went down in this cage every single day with the lunch bucket that my grandma packed for him. And when he went down that cage, he thought of that life at sea that he wanted. He thought about hunting. He loved that. He loved blueberry picking, but that's what he did every day. And by the way, those mines were really dangerous back then. The whistle would go off and people would run for those mines, and they would come to the scene and they wouldn't know if it was their brother or their dad or whoever was killed. And over time, they got safer. But the one thing that my grandpa got to do is he saved money in a coffee can in the basement of his little house to send my dad and his brother to college. And my dad went to a 2-year community college. That's what they could afford. And from there, he went to the University of Minnesota. He got a journalism degree. He started covering the world. He mostly covered sports. He actually wrote a book in the early 80s that is sadly still relevant today called Will the Vikings Ever Win the Super Bowl? So he had this amazing life all out of that hard scrabble mining town because my grandpa gave him that opportunity. My mom grew up in Milwaukee. She wanted to be a teacher, so she moved to Minnesota, and she taught 2nd grade until she was 70 years old. So I stand here before you today as the granddaughter of an iron ore miner, as the daughter of a teacher and a newspaperman, as the first woman elected to the U.S. Senate from the state of Minnesota, and a candidate for president of the United States. That is what shared dreams are about. That's what this country is about, that no matter where you come from or who you know or the color of your skin or how much money you have or where you worship or who you love, that you can make it in the United States of America. And so that's what I'm going to be able to say to Donald Trump. And I will add a PS that $413 million does not fit in a coffee can in a basement. And I figure when you are given opportunity from a parent or a grandparent, from a teacher, from someone you work with, that you do not go into the world with a sense of entitlement. You go into the world with a sense of obligation. An obligation to lift people up instead of shoving them down. An obligation to bring people with you instead of hoarding it all for yourself. So when we think of the people out there, we have to have an optimistic economic agenda to bring people with us as a contrast to this guy. And it's simply meeting the challenges that we know are out there today, like healthcare. And we've had a lot of debates about that on the stage. And so I just look at it practically. Right now, the Affordable Care Act, which we can improve and must be improved. The Affordable Care Act, because of its prohibition on kicking people off their health insurance for pre-existing conditions, because of allowing kids to stay on their insurance till they're 26, a number of things. The Affordable Care Act is now nearly 10 points more popular than the President of the United States. So I don't think, I do not think our position should be that we want to blow it up. I come from a state that has a lot of lakes, not just 10,000, more than that, and rivers. And when you come to troubled water, what do? You build a bridge, you don't blow one up. I think what we need is a nonprofit public option to bring down the premiums. That is what Barack Obama wanted to do from the very beginning. I think what we need is a president who has shown the grit from the very beginning to take on the pharmaceutical industry to bring those prices down. There are literally, just to fill you in on this, that it's not just some political rhetoric, there are 2 pharma lobbyists for every member of Congress. And before my time, they got written into law that Medicare, on behalf of 45 million seniors of America, cannot negotiate less expensive drug prices. Medicaid can, it is ridiculous. Medicaid can, VA can, but Medicare can't. And so that's when I got there. I drafted the bill. I lead the bill. I have over 30 co-sponsors to erase that language from the books so that Medicare can negotiate prices. And as president, I will get it done. We should also, to create leverage and to bring these prices down, we should also bring in less expensive, safe drugs from other countries. In our northern states of New Hampshire and Minnesota, we can see Canada from our porch. Not really. For the fact checkers, that was a metaphor. It was a joke. Explain, otherwise you get these Pinocchios. Okay, so we can see Canada from our porch. You can see those less expensive drugs. And that's why I have long led what is now a bipartisan bill. It was with my friend Senator McCain, who I miss every single day, and especially missed him the last few weeks, and is now with Senator Grassley, a bipartisan bill to allow less expensive drugs to come in to compete with our drug companies here, which is all good. That's how we usually do things in America, to bring down those prices. That's one way to do it. We can also put a cap on pharmaceuticals. That's another way to do it. And there is broad support. Bernie and I did amendments similar to the bill that I had introduced with McCain in the middle of the night one time that said this, safe drugs from Canada, and we got 14 Republican votes. People might have been tired, I don't know, but we got those votes. So my point is we can build this coalition to get this done. Other things, addiction and mental health. Not enough has been done. We've never had a president that's come in and said, this is a priority for me. This is something where I want to remove the stigma, that I want to make sure in states like New Hampshire that has struggled with this opioid epidemic in every corner of your state, that we actually get the resources there for treatment and that we don't leave mental health behind. Why? Well, for me, it's personal. My dad struggled with addiction his whole life. By the time my husband and I got married, he had 3 DWIs. And on the third one, the judge basically said, it's your choice, jail or treatment. and he chose treatment. And in his words, he was pursued by grace. He had his faith, the treatment, our family, his friends, and it changed his life. And now at age 91, he is sober. He is in assisted living, and his AA group still visits him there. And as he said to me about a year and a half ago, it's hard to get a drink around here anyway. But that's his life. And that was because that treatment was there for him. And I think everyone has that same right to be pursued by grace. And that's why I put together a paid-for plan. One of my big themes is to pay for what we do. That will be really helpful, particularly in rural areas that have trouble accessing treatment. Other thing, long-term care, which is the elephant you cannot even fit in this room or the overflow room. That is about the aging of our population. And it's not just affecting seniors, it's affecting families. People my age and younger who have kids that they are trying to raise while they are also paying for their trying to figure out how to pay and take care of their aging parents. That means, of course, strong Social Security. It means strong Medicaid, but it also means finally being smart about updating our laws to face the changes that we're seeing in the demographics in our country. So what would I do? I would make it easier to get long-term care insurance with premium help. There's a way to pay for this. And also by making it easier for seniors to stay in their homes, building more affordable housing in town for people if they want to move there, and then opening up housing stock for younger families. There's all these things we can do if we simply put our mind to it. And again, for me, it's personal. My dad somehow bought long-term care insurance a long time ago. That's what's keeping him in this place with 15 people that he likes. I know exactly when that's going to end. It's in a year and a half, and that's when his savings kick in. He doesn't have as much as he should because he got married 3 times, but that is a whole nother story that I'll only tell the overflow crowd. But then he goes on Medicaid, and I've already talked to Catholic Elder Care, and they're going to take him in because the place he is right now doesn't take Medicaid. And our family story is actually happier than so many other stories. We have a plan. It is really hard for people. So much of this is going to be thinking and making good decisions and having a focus on something like long-term care. And all of these things we should be doing instead of doing what this president is doing, which is endlessly relitigating the Affordable Care Act and trying to repeal it. That is not where we need to go. Other things. Education. So it actually flows from what I just said. Yeah, this is a good education town. Okay, education. So I always tease my friends up there on the debate stage that they're actually not thinking big enough. I know they have bumper sticker slogans, the free college for all. I know it's appealing, but let's just step back. If you really think big, that's not the solution. If you really think big, you look at our economy and you look at our education system. So here's what we know. We have a lot of people that have a lot of loans. So we should make it easier to refinance loans. If multimillionaires can refinance their yachts, students should be able to refinance their loan. We have a public service payment program over 10 years. That's a great idea, but it's not working well at all. And we should actually phase it in better. We should expand it for teachers and the like. There's no reason we can't make this work. And we should actually expand it to in-demand occupations like nursing and the like, where we need people. Thank you, one person. This is why we need more nurses, which I'll get to in a minute. And so we should expand it. And the first way, and I have this 100-day plan of 137 things that a new president can do herself without Congress that are legal, because we uphold the, and one of them we can do in 100 seconds, and that is fire Betsy DeVos. That would be But then the harder work is this, and that is looking at our economy. So here's what we know. Because of what I just talked about with long-term care, which is also, by the way, for people with disabilities, as well as our senior population, we are going to have over 1 million openings for long-term care workers and for home health care workers. Over 1 million openings. Now, some of those jobs don't pay that well, and that's why if I have hard-earned taxpayer money there, I don't want to put it into rich kids going to college. I would much rather put it into helping with childcare and the like, because that's the only way you're going to get people to take these jobs that we need to have filled. Secondly, we're going to have over 100,000 openings for nursing assistants. Those are 1- and 2-year degree jobs. We are going to have over 70,000 openings for electricians. We are not going to have... Thank you. We are not going to have a shortage of sports marketing degrees. Okay, I know there's probably someone whose kid got the degree. Okay, we are not going to have a shortage of sports marketing degrees. We're going to have a shortage of plumbers. That is the facts. And so, how do we make it work? Well, first of all, it means big time investment in K through 12. And preschool, because we want to have everyone get that foundational education. It means free 1- and 2-year degrees. That's what my dad got. I know how much it meant. That's what my sister got. She didn't graduate from high school. She worked in manufacturing. She got her GED. Then she got her 2-year degree, and she's been gainfully employed with her 4-year degree as an accountant ever since. There are many, many paths to success. Then, for the 4-year degrees and beyond, we're going to have a lot of openings for those. That is doubling Pell Grants from $6,000 to $12,000 a year. Doubling the income level where you can get them from $50,000 to $100,000 a year. That is going to put the money where we need it, on the people that most need it. And that is my plan, and it doesn't fit on a bumper sticker. But it fits our economy, and it fits our country. Next, immigration reform. So when you look at economic needs, and this is, I'm going to make this quick, because for me, I talk about it differently than this president, who uses it as a wedge issue. In a state like New Hampshire, where you have a very low unemployment rate, we need immigrants. Immigrants are what made this country great, and let's look at these facts. So we have openings right now in our fields and in our factories, starting small businesses. We've got openings in our nursing homes and the like. We have 70 of our Fortune 500 companies are headed up by people from other countries. 25% of our U.S. Nobel laureates were born in other countries. Immigrants do not diminish America, they are America. So if you look at it, that's why we had Republican support, and we had the Chamber and the AFL-CIO both supporting the immigration bill in 2013. And it died somewhere in John Boehner's freezer next to the frozen peas. But that was a very similar bill that George Bush wanted to get done very badly. I know, because I was in the small group of senators tapped to work with the administration on that, and we got so close. This time we can get it done. Last challenge I want to mention is climate change. We know that it's not happening in 100 years, it's happening now. We see it with the oyster and the lobster fishing business off the seacoast, off the coast of Maine. We see it on the effect of the moose and loon population. I like to say loon, it's our state bird in Minnesota. We see it with the sugar maples. I mean, this is a biologist had told me this just yesterday. That's a tourism industry. I head up the tourism caucus in the Senate. That's a good thing for New Hampshire. And I care a lot about this. And you see the change that you're seeing because of climate change throughout our country. Yes, it's the rising sea levels and what's happening with Florida and those horrible wildfires in California. And if you ever want to see a video for 1 minute that makes you think that it's happening now, watch the one of the dad driving out of Paradise, neighborhood on fire, flames lapping over his car as he sings to his little girl to try to calm her down. It's a 1 minute video. Think of the effects in the middle of the country. And so it is really important, and I think this is why having someone from the middle of the country lead the ticket where we haven't had the votes is really important, to make that economic case. about the rising homeowners insurance because of the flooding, about the fact that farmers can't even plant because their fields are too wet. But I think it's also important to have a practical plan. So here we go. Day one, I will sign us back into the International Climate Change Agreement. When Donald Trump took us out of the agreement, there were only two countries not in it, Nicaragua and Syria. They are now in the agreement. So we are the only ones. On day two, bring back the clean power standards. That is something that had been negotiated for years and years with the Obama administration. They made compromises. Day three, something the car companies supported until Donald Trump came in, bring back the gas mileage standards for new vehicles. And on day 4, 5, and 6, introduce sweeping legislation, including energy efficiency, something that Jeanne Shaheen has been leading on for years, energy efficiency legislation, and putting a price on carbon. And on day 7, we will rest. No, we won't rest. So, but here is the key that a lot of other candidates don't talk about. So you got to have this policy with the right numbers and know what you're doing and see the science and all of that. And all the candidates' policies are pretty similar, actually, because we know we're going to bring in trillions of dollars, whether we do it with cap and trade or a renewable electricity standard or a straight price on carbon. We also know that's going to bring in these trillions of dollars. That's going to create incentives for new technologies that we don't even know exist right now, kind of like the Segway of climate change of New Hampshire thing. There's another climate change joke. We have to build a fridge to the next century. Okay. Okay, so it's really hard to make climate change jokes because it's not that funny. So the key thing here is that we make sure that the money that we bring in goes directly back to people, especially in a state like this where you have big heating bills, just like my state. It's not only the right policy, because it's already hard for people to pay for stuff, but it's also the right way to win. It's the only way we're going to do it, is if we make it airtight, that money that comes in goes to people if they're going to see changes in their bills, and it goes to them in perpetuity so we can get this done. The second piece about it is there's going to be areas that are going to see change in employment. A lot of areas are going to see new jobs, great new jobs, and those should be union jobs, and we know those jobs. But more than that, we are going to see changes in some areas where there's transitions out of certain jobs. So we have to make sure that part of this money goes to incentives for manufacturing in those areas. It doesn't have to even be green manufacturing, just to make sure those jobs are there. And just to assure you that for me, it's not just my head, but my heart. I told you about my grandpa up there in northern Minnesota, just like in the North Country, in Berlin and other places. I would see what happens there. The mines closed down, they open. Right now they're open because we did something about Chinese steel dumping, brought in some new businesses. But when they were closed, it's really, really hard. I remember my dad and I driving out of Duluth, and there was a billboard that they put up sometime in the 70s, and it said, someone literally took a billboard out, "Last one to leave, turn off the lights." That's what we're talking about here. So it is on us to make sure that these policies work for these workers. And I truly believe we can do this, but I just want to guarantee to you is that is how I come into this. Last thing I want to say is this, is that when we look at what our task is in front of us, it is a big one to build this big coalition. And again, when I was sitting in that trial, I had a lot of time to think about it. And I finally figured out that's what's missing right now between this president and the people, in addition to lawlessness, all these other problems. What's missing is empathy. He cannot put himself in the shoes of those workers in Berlin. He cannot put himself in the shoes of the people that are struggling to pay their rent, because he's always thinking about himself. And then I remembered that story of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who was beloved, who saw our country through the hardest of times. And when he died, they put his body on a train, and that train went from Georgia to Washington, and people spontaneously stood up on the sides of the rail tracks to show their respect. And this reporter came upon a guy who was just sobbing. He had his hat in his hand, and he's crying, and the reporter says to him, "Sir, do you mind me asking, did you know President Roosevelt?" And the guy says, no, I didn't know President Roosevelt, but he knew me. He knew me. That is empathy. So I want you to know this, Exeter. I want you to know this. If you are having trouble deciding if you're going to pay for childcare for your kids or help your aging parents, I know you, and I will fight for you. If you're having trouble figuring out how you're going to pay that extra mortgage or you're going to be able to pay the rent because you're trying to stretch your paycheck, I know you, and I'll fight for you. If you can't decide if you're going to fill your refrigerator or your prescription, I know you, and I will fight for you. I want you to know this because I need your help right now. We are on the cusp of something really great, and I am no longer chained to my desk so I can go all over the state, but I can't call everyone you know. So I'm asking you to do that today, tonight. Get out there, but mostly just call your friends and ask them to vote for me. You can tell them to look at those editorials. You can tell them what you heard today. You can ask them to look up at our website. You can tell them this journey that we are on. Because I truly believe that what should matter in a democracy, and what New Hampshire has done time and time again, is seen through all the big money, and maybe even seen through all the big names, to give someone a chance who the state believes can truly lead this ticket. And I'm asking you to do that for me. So I picked the color green for our buttons and our signs because it is the color of one of my political mentors, Paul Wellstone. And he tragically died too young in a plane crash with his wife and daughter and their beloved staff. And that year, he was running for re-election. He took a courageous vote against the Iraq War, and he was still going to win. And that year, I was running for re-election for a local office, and I didn't have an opponent, which seems really nice right now. And I spent that year campaigning with him. And what I saw that year, I'll never forget, and that is that he had told the state that he had MS. And his whole political career, he had defied expectations. So when he was running against a really wealthy guy, he took out these ads, and he talked really, really fast because he said, I have just done no money compared to my opponent, so I have to get a lot in 30 seconds. And he would run back and forth in these parades really, really fast. But that last year, he could not run. He could hardly walk. So he would stand on the back of his green bus in these parades. That's why we have a green bus. And he would just stand on the back of that bus, and he would just wave. But here was the amazing thing. There were so many people in these green shirts that he had energized that would run around that bus that you didn't even notice he wasn't running himself. That is what I am asking you to do for me. Not literally run around a bus. You don't have to do that. But to vote for me tomorrow, to make those calls, to explain what we're up to and what I'm stand for. I'm asking you to do that. And if we do this right, we are gonna, as usual, New Hampshire, surprise the country. So please do this for me. Let's go out there. Let's go out there and win. Let's do it.